I'm here.
Hi, Archie.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
I am always great when I see you. You are just one of my favorite people to see every day. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen, and then I'm going to close the door so that we don't hear all of the commotion going on out in the living room. So here is the star, and I will take that off. Okay. So there's a conversation going on here while Daniel, Nick, and the person telling the story are raking the leaves in the yard, and the dad is watching and reading the newspaper. Daniel tells Dad, "Me and Nick are starting a leaf raking business." And the dad says, "Oh?" And then Nick says, "Yeah, we put up flyers and everything." And then the dad says, "Good for you, but you've got competition. Buzzy Lennon has most of the neighborhood all signed up." "Buzzy's a ripoff artist," Daniel exclaimed. "His prices are way too high. I heard he charged old Mrs. Rigby $100 last year." All right, before we turn the page, I want to talk just a little bit about what is a leaf raking business. What is a neighborhood? What does it mean that they have competition? What does it mean to be a ripoff artist? And how much is $100? And what does it mean to put up flyers? So,
I know what is conversation.
competition?
Yeah.
What is competition?
Like someone talking.
That's conversation. They're very close. Let's take a look at that word real quick. Conversation. You are correct. That's when people are talking. And this word is competition. They both end with shun. Conversation, competition, and each one has 4 syllables. So they sound almost the same. Okay, so this picture right here is showing a neighborhood. That E-I-G-H says a neighborhood. And in a neighborhood, you have lots of different houses on one street, and the house on either side of you is your neighbor. So this here, for example, shows a street, and then there are many houses on it. So if you live in this house right here, then your neighbors would be this house and this house. Okay, so that is a neighborhood. Now, a leaf raking business. Well, people that live in these houses, they want their yard to look nice, and they want their driveway to be clean. So if this is your house right here, your driveway is going to be this. So your car would go into the driveway and then maybe into a garage, which is like a little house just for the car. In the winter, if this town gets a lot of snow, then the driveway might fill up with snow. And then the people that live here might want to hire one of the kids in the neighborhood to come over and shovel the snow off of their driveway. And kids can make a lot of money on the weekends doing that in the wintertime. If the neighbors want them to come over and shovel all of the snow off of their driveway, then maybe they can make, in American money, $10 or $20 in Taiwan money. Maybe they could make 600 NT or 1000 NT to come and do that job for one of the neighbors. And imagine if you do that for lots of neighbors, then you could, as a kid, kind of make a good bit of money that day. Although if the driveway is a long driveway, it might take 3 or 4 hours to shovel one driveway if there is a lot of snow on it. If it snowed for a long time and there could be a foot of snow on the driveway or 2 feet of snow. But the other thing that might happen is if the yards have a lot of trees in them and the trees have leaves that turn gold and orange and red and brown, and then in the fall, they all fall off of the tree onto the grass or the ground of the yard, then the yard gets covered in leaves. And people want to clean those leaves up. They want someone to come and rake the leaves off of the yard. Well, if they have kids, they might have their kids do it. But if they don't have kids and they're too busy, they might want to hire some kids in the neighborhood to come and rake their yard for them, and then they can give them some money for doing that. So a leaf raking business would be when some of the kids in the neighborhood put up signs and say, you can hire me, you can hire us, we will come and rake the leaves from your yard. So that would be their business, because when you have a business, you want to make money. So if it's a business, they're going to charge some money to do the job for the people that live in the house. Putting up flyers is putting up the signs. So here is an example of a place outside in a town where people have permission to put up flyers. Usually in most towns, you cannot put up flyers wherever you want. There might be a special place like this, or maybe there's a bulletin board at the grocery store. At a school, there might be a bulletin board where people can put up their flyers. So each flyer is just a piece of paper that gives some information. And if it's someone offering to do a job, like a babysitting job or raking the leaves from your yard or giving piano lessons or violin lessons, they will probably also leave their name and phone number so that you can contact them if you are interested. So those are flyers. Then the dad says, well, you might have competition from Buzzy Lennon because he has already signed up most of the neighborhood. So let's use this picture and pretend that this is their neighborhood. If Buzzy Lennon has already signed up most of the neighborhood, then maybe, let's say this is where our character lives, the one that's telling the story, and Nick and Daniel. So if most of the neighborhood has been signed up by Buzzy Lennon, maybe Buzzy has already talked to this family and they want Buzzy to come and rake their yard. And maybe this family has hired Buzzy to come rake their yard. And maybe also this family and this family and this family and this family. You can see this would show that most of the families in this neighborhood have already hired Buzzy to be the one to come and rake their yard. That means there are not very many houses left that need someone to come and rake their yard. So maybe Daniel and Nick could not get very much business. That is the dad's point. But Daniel and Nick are not worried. They say, Buzzy's a rip-off artist. A rip-off artist is an expression we use in English to talk about someone who charges way too much money to do a job, and it's not fair. And they give an example. They say that last year, Buzzy charged old Mrs. Rigby So she's an old lady, or they think of her as an old lady, and they charged her $100. Well, $100 in Taiwan money would be at least 3,000 NT dollars. So that's quite a bit of money to ask someone to pay a kid, one kid, to come and rake the leaves from their yard. It would make more sense if it was 400, maybe 500 NT would be a pretty good amount to give a kid for taking an hour or two to rake the leaves from their yard. And I think that Nick and Daniel have a plan. They're thinking, well, I'm not going to tell you what they're thinking. We're going to find out soon how they're going to handle this problem of Buzzy Lennon signing up most of the neighborhood and why they're not worried about it. All right, so let's go on to the next page. Now, here's where we're going to talk about a simile. So Nick speaks up and he says, Buzzy is, this means Buzzy is a thief. Now, a thief is someone who's, a thief is someone who steals things. They take things that do not belong to them. When they're calling Buzzy a thief, they're saying he's taking money, more money than he should. Now, he's not really a thief. If someone is paying him money, then that's their choice. So you can't say he's really a thief, but they're calling him a thief because they think he's taking too much money. And so then Nick says, he's a thief. That's why we, Nick and Daniel, are going to, this should be going to, steal his business. And then it says he smiled like a fox. Well, there's two things here. I love this author because he's really good at playing with the English language and giving us great examples to talk about. So there are a few things I want to show. One is gonna means going to. Now, if you're writing in English, we should never write gonna. But if you're speaking in English, you will sometimes hear people say gonna, and it means going to. And the reason the author could write gonna is because the author is putting this in quotation marks here and here, and then here and here. And so the author is telling us what Nick is saying. So this gonna is what Nick is saying, what he's speaking. But what I really want to talk about is this idea of him saying, Buzzy's a thief, so that makes it okay for us to steal his business. And this reminds me of a saying that we have in English, which is two wrongs don't make a right. Two wrongs don't make a right. So let's say we have these two kids. And let's say that this one, we'll call him A, took the basketball, that's my basketball, I guess the basketball should be orange, that belongs to this guy, B. And so I ask A, why did you take the basketball that belongs to B? And so A says, well, because he pushed me down. So that means B did something wrong, and B did something wrong first. So B was the first person to do something wrong. He pushed number A. He pushed this guy. But does that make it okay for A to steal his basketball? Can he say, I just took his basketball because he did something wrong first, so he deserves it. So I didn't do anything wrong. It's not my fault. He did something wrong first, so he deserves it. Well, the answer we say is two wrongs don't make a right. Yes, when B pushed A down, that was wrong. But that doesn't mean it's okay for A to get back at him by stealing his basketball. So we say 2 wrongs don't make a right. You can't say that if B does something that's wrong, and then we add it to A does something that's wrong because he's mad, that does not equal everything being okay. That does not make it okay. So that, I think of that saying when I see this here. Nick is saying, you know what, Buzzy charges too much money, so that makes it okay for us to steal his business. So I have a little bit of a problem with Nick's logic, because I think to myself, 2 wrongs don't make a right. On the other hand, Buzzy's not really doing anything wrong. He's not really stealing anybody's money. He's charging too much money, but it's still, you know, when someone hires him, it is still their choice to pay that much money. They don't have to. They don't have to hire him. They could say to Buzzy, you charge too much money. I don't want to hire you. So you can't really blame Buzzy, because when people decide to hire him, that's their choice. Could you get rid of the what on the page for me? Oh, thanks. Also, steal his business. This is an expression we use in English, but it's not really stealing. When you say, I'm going to steal your business, you're not actually doing anything wrong. You're just in competition for the customer. So it works like this. So maybe it's true that Buzzy has talked to this person and this person and this person and this person and this person. And maybe each of those people have agreed to give Buzzy $100 or 3,000 NT. But Nick and Daniel could go knock on their door and could say to them, you know, we would like to rake your yard. And maybe they will say, oh, we already hired someone. And then Daniel and Nick could say, oh, okay, well, we just wanted to let you know that we would rake your yard in 1 hour and it will only cost you $10 or 300 NT. So then the person might think, huh, wow, let me see. They might think about this and they might say, well, Buzzy, he wants to charge us $100. Okay, so that's about 3,000 NT. And it will probably take him 2 hours because he's just one person. But then they might learn about Nick and Daniel and they might say, oh, well, then over here, there's Nick and Daniel. And they are only going to charge me $10, which is about maybe 350 NT. And they can do it in 1 hour because it's 2 people working instead of 1 person. And now they have competition. Okay, now people can choose. So now people can say, do I want this one or do I want this one? What is the better deal for me? Do I want to pay more money and have it take more time? Or do I want to pay less money and have it take less time? So now people have a choice. This is what we call competition. So if you are a business and you want the customer to choose you, then maybe you need to charge less money, or you need to offer something that the customer will think is a better deal than what your competition is offering. Nick and Daniel could offer less money and less time. Both of those things are better than what Buzzy might be offering. So the customer, which is the person who lives in the house with the money and is deciding who do I want to hire, Buzzy or Daniel and Nick, they're going to look at what is the better deal, and they will pick the business that will give them the better deal. Now, maybe they already told Buzzy yes, but if he has not done the job, and if they have not paid him money, and they probably do not have something called a contract because it's just some kids in the neighborhood, they could say to Buzzy, we changed our mind. We don't need you anymore. And then hire Nick and Daniel instead. This would be what we call Nick and Daniel stealing Buzzy's business. Does that mean Nick and Daniel are doing something wrong? No, that is just how business works. So whenever there is a need that a customer has, so in our neighborhood, it would be each house, each people that live in a house, they might need someone to come and rake the leaves of their yard. So now that there's a need, a business can come and say, hire us, hire us. This is how much money we charge. This is what we will do for you. But other businesses might do the same thing. So you might have a choice. And then you can pick the better choice. The businesses are in competition with each other because they want the customer to choose them and not choose the other person. Because both of these businesses cannot do the same job. The customer has to pick only one of them. So even though the dad says that Buzzy has already gotten most of the families in the neighborhood to hire him, Buzzy has not done the work yet. And so Nick and Daniel think there is still a chance that they could get the people that live in that neighborhood to change their mind and hire them instead. So that, I think, is what they're thinking. And so then Nick, this he right here is Nick, because Nick is the one who was just talking. So Nick smiled like a fox. And this is the last thing we're going to talk about today. It's this, he smiled like a fox. This is something we call a simile. A simile is something that we can use in English to help the listener or the reader have a better understanding of what we're talking about. It is when we take two things and we use one of them to help us understand the other one better. So, for example, okay, so here's our simile. The word here that makes this a simile is the word like. There are two different ways to make a simile. One is using the word like, and the other one is using two ases. There's one as, and then there'll be another word, and then there'll be another as. So those are the two ways to make a simile. The other thing we need to make a simile is we need two nouns. So the first noun is this one, he, which is Nick. And then the other noun is a fox. So this is noun number one and noun number two. We're going to use noun number two, the fox, to help us understand something about Nick. What is it helping us understand? It is helping us understand how Nick is smiling and what that means. Now, this sentence is not telling us that Nick is a fox. That would be literal. If it said Nick, if Nick was really a fox, That would be a literal meaning. So a simile is not a literal meaning. A simile is a figurative meaning. Figurative means it is not really what it sounds like. It's going to be something else. So the meaning is something different than what it sounds like. And when we are writing or talking in English, we like to use figurative language sometimes to help make our point. So in this case, Nick is not literally a fox, but he's smiling. And they're saying the way that he's smiling is like a fox. Well, the author is using what we know about a fox to help us understand what is Nick thinking right now, to help us get a clue about Nick's character. That means that we, the reader, need to know something about a fox. Well, a fox has a reputation for being very clever and tricky and sly, kind of sneaky, playing tricks on people. When we look at all of the old stories written or told back from Native Americans or people back when they were just telling stories around the campfire, all the old stories that have foxes in them, the fox is always a character who is tricky and clever and sly. So a fox has this reputation, which means in this simile, it is telling us that Nick is being tricky and sneaky and clever and sly. And how do we know that? Because what happened right before that sentence? Nick said, "We are going to steal his business." And so Nick and Daniel already know that Buzzy has signed up most of the neighborhood and that they have a plan for how they are going to get the people who live in the neighborhood to change their mind and hire them instead. So, like a fox, he's being tricky and sneaky and clever and sly. So that's what that simile means. We will see some other examples in the book where we're going to use the as blank as. But this simile is using the word like. All right, this is where we're going to put our star right here. I will say, so long.
Bye,
Bye, Archie. Good to see you.